You know that feeling when finishing a special anime where you know it's not exactly the same as others? It's that one show that means more than just the sum of its parts, having impacted us in a certain way, either because we can relate on a deeper personal level, because its genres fit all our personal tastes, the sentimental value it holds with someone close to us, or some other reason that I've yet to mention. I'd wager a guess that an anime just came to mind that fits this mold, and I'm confident that show is probably the one you consider your favorite. I'm also certain that each one of you have a different favorite, for a different reason, and that's what's so great about anime. There are so many diverse shows with varying genres and themes that something is bound to affect you, causing you to keep it near and dear to your heart. I know that feeling all too well, though it surprises me that I hadn't realized this sooner. In fact, if you'd asked me not too long ago, I'd probably give you a different answer regarding my favorite. Why is that, and what caused me to change my mind? My name's Jay, I like anime, and let's talk about my favorite anime. The anime that left the biggest impression on me. Let's talk about Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai. Just a quick disclaimer, there will be some spoilers for the show when necessary to make a point, but I'll try my best not to spoil too much if I don't need to. Cool? Cool. Let's start with...
Part 1. The characters.
When it comes to what's most vital to a good story, I think it's the characters. If I'm not able to understand them, see them go through their struggles, cry, laugh, love, lose, and gain, the story they experience is much emptier to me. I'd like to say Bunny Girl Senpai delivers on the character department. Aside from every character's trademark wit, though the dialogue in this series is absolutely welcome, every character has a tangible personality that really interests me. I think to fully understand why I like this series so much, we need to first examine the characters, from its main lead to its supporting cast, starting with our protagonist, Sakuta Azusagawa. Sakuta purposely chooses to ignore the social expectation people place on each other to read the room, and will deadpan do and say whatever he wants regardless of it. That's not to say he's a total creep. Oftentimes he'll use this to help people around him get over their own emotional hangups. Like when he ran to the school courtyard during his exam to loudly proclaim his love for his actress upperclassman Mai Sakurajima so people would notice her again. Or when he got into an argument with people he went to school with to get Tomoe Koga out of a difficult situation. You see, Sakuta's core value is to be kind, something he learned from his junior high crush, Shoko Makinohara, and he takes that with him when he sees others going through adolescent syndrome. He tries his best to be emotionally available, an ear to talk to, or someone who his friends can turn to when they need him, and he encourages them to learn and grow from their own problems at their own pace. There are more examples of Sakuta's kindness, but I think going over all of them would take all day, so instead, let's talk about what, let's be honest, probably got you to click onto this video, Mai Sakurajima. As the first girl you meet in the anime, Mai's a very interesting one. Upon first impression, not just in the show, but on the freaking poster itself, you see her dressed as the titular bunny girl, which isn't that great a look for the quality of the show or Mai as a character, but you know what they say, don't judge a book by its cover. Mai's a famous actress who started her career as a child in a TV drama, slowly gaining her fame over time until deciding to go on hiatus due to a mishap with her manager. After the mishap and returning to a normal life, the other students at her school avoided her, not knowing how to approach a celebrity like herself. This slowly spreads until people genuinely cannot perceive her, hence the bunny outfit. Mai was trying to see who could still see her, since it'd be pretty shocked to come across a girl, let alone a famous actress, dressed so strangely. Mai comes across a rather stoic and put together girl initially, having dealt with the downsides that came with fame, as well as the isolation from her adolescent syndrome all her own. Even coming to the conclusion to return to showbiz without Sakuta's help, something she agonized over multiple times due to the bitter feelings she got over the situation. That is, however, until we meet her manager, her mother, and by this point, not even she is able to see nor remember her own daughter. Due to this, we see Mai's mask of stoic confidence fall, and her fear of being forgotten, of being alone forever, take hold. This doesn't make Mai weak in any sense of the word, but she's not unflinching like she comes across initially. She's just a normal girl with her own likes, dreams, as well as fears. She's smart, being able to tutor Sakuta and his subjects while still maintaining her own good grades, mature enough to put up with Sakuta's rascal antics, dealing with showbiz executives professionally, and deal with what would be heavily dramatic situations in most shows with a level head. Add on a dash of tsundere, and it's a no-brainer why a lot of weebs would like her. Does this make her a Mary Sue? I'd say no, though I could see an argument for the other point of view. Her fear of being forgotten due to her adolescent syndrome, as well as the bitterness she held towards showbiz because of the events that led to her hiatus, keep her from that perfect girl status. She also doesn't revolve her entire life around Sakuta, as evidenced in the final arc of the show, where she was unable to be there for him when he needed someone. Sure, she loves him and she wants to do what she can to be there for him, but she still stands on her own 2 feet, even after the pair get together. Unlike a certain strong female lead that became arm candy the second she got a boyfriend. I could keep going on about Mai, but I think instead, I'm gonna save that for later and talk about Sakuta's little sister, Kaede Azusagawa. On an objectively pure character standpoint, I'd say she's the most interesting one to me. She's the victim of cyberbullying from kids at her middle school, causing actual cuts to form on her body, driving her and Sakuta's mom into a wreck out of a deep-rooted trauma and feelings of being a failure, respectively, causing the two siblings to disconnect from social media as much as possible and move out of their parents' house into the apartment they live in now. When we meet Kaede, she comes across as the classic Oni-chan obsessed little sister trope we've seen a million times over, but as her story arc continues, we learn a lot more about her that makes her more compelling. She's unable to answer the phone on her own unless it's Sakuta, who she'll only answer once it goes to voicemail, and she can confirm it is indeed him because of the deep-rooted trauma she holds within her. She never leaves the house, understandably, remaining absent from school, but instead staying in her panda pajamas all day and refuses to connect with the outside world. This remains the status quo for the majority of the anime until the last quarter of the TV series, where a bombshell is dropped on us, completely changing our perception of her. I'm not going to spoil what that is because I think it's best you find out for yourself, but I think that the fact that her arc isn't tackled immediately lends to her character and allows her slow, gradual development as one with trauma like Kaede needs. I'm getting into the novels here, and I'm not going to touch on it too much, especially since the adaptation for what I'm talking about is coming out soon, but Kaede's development continues past the first movie and continues to evolve and grow as a character, something most of the other characters don't really get a chance to do after their arcs are all said and done. Though that doesn't mean they're not great, nor does it mean they're not well fleshed out in their own right. Well, aside from Sakuta's friend Kunimi, but I'll talk about him in the end. For now, let's move on to someone who is, subjectively, one of my favorite characters. Ryo Futaba. Futaba is, lack of a better term, a science nut. She spends her time alone in the science room most of the time doing experiments. Look, I said I like her character. I didn't say I knew exactly what she does in the science room. She's one of Sakuta's two friends at school and is often there to help him with the adolescent syndrome phenomena that occur throughout the series, despite the fact that she doesn't believe in the phenomenon herself. She's very sharp and dry in her delivery, being as, if not more blunt than Sakuta, but that's not what makes her one of my favorites. Her cuteness aside, it's her story and character arc that really enamor me. Futaba's body matured before the other girls in her class, and she received stares from the guys as a result, which caused her to hate her body, thinking it was so filthy. The summer before the story in the anime began, she created a Twitter account, where she, unable to think of other things to post, started posting pictures of her body in risque positions in order to garner attention. This contrast between her wanting attention and the means she's taking to attain said attention caused her to split into two. One, attention-seeking version that dresses in a much flashier fashion and continues to post on her account, and the regular her that wants the other version to stop. This all changes when Futaba gets a frightening text from a sketchy follower asking to meet up. We then learn more of her reasoning for wanting attention. Her friends, Sakuta and Kunimi, both getting girlfriends and, therefore, a growing fear of them leaving her behind. The two Futabas finally fuse when the attention-seeking Futaba learns that her fear is unfounded, and the other Futaba learns to accept that other part of herself. I think out of the stories in the anime, it was this one that resonated the most for me. Maybe not because of the attention-seeking or the lewd image-posting parts, but the self-loathing and fear of being left behind, of being all alone, and the ending to her arc is really uplifting for someone with those thoughts. Okay, enough hype. Let's move on to the best kohai with a peach butt. Tomoe Koga. Okay, that sounds weird, but that's seriously one of the running gags with her in the show. Like I've said, Sakuta's weird. Koga's an interesting person. She comes from a rural town and wanted to make friends so badly when she moved to Tokyo that she taught herself to read the atmosphere and go with the flow. She taught herself so well, in fact, that she's able to accurately predict the future months ahead of time, leading to her adolescent syndrome, a time loop. No, don't click off the video just yet, please. Let me explain. So, yes, there is a time loop, but it's honestly used rather sparingly and in an interesting way. See, Koga's running simulations of events in her mind and will reset the simulation if the outcome isn't to her liking. Over the course of her arc, she learns that sometimes there will be things that she cannot change and she'll just have to accept. I think the fact that this arc comes in between and effectively blocks Sakuta and Mai going out brings it, and effectively Koga, down for me. It's not really her fault, especially since she goes back to being friends with Sakuta after the arc is all said and done, but she isn't really left with much to do after that, aside from some witty interactions between she and our main character from time to time. Next would be Mai's half-sister, Norika. She's an idol who earnestly tries her hardest at it, yet is always compared to her older half-sister in terms of talent by their parents and peers. Because of this, despite her idolization of Mai, she becomes jealous of her, causing them to swap bodies, in kind of like a Freaky Friday situation. I'm gonna be honest here, Nodoka is probably the weakest character in the show, and it's not really her fault. Aside from her arc, she isn't given much to do aside from lives with Mai, and she kind of comes out of nowhere. Sure, she gets mentioned by Mai in her arc, and made a brief cameo in Futaba's arc on TV, but she never had any other interactions with the rest of the cast prior to this. Her relationship with Mai is fine, sure, and the reconciliation they have is a nice moment, but her arc was the one I remembered the least on my rewatch. Side note, I went to rewatch the first arc of the show for the sake of this video and ended up watching the whole thing in a day. Anyway, it doesn't help that she initially follows the Siscon who is very judgmental of her sister's boyfriend trope, and it really bogs down the experience since most of that arc is that dynamic. That's not to say it's terrible though. It has moments that make you feel for her, but she is bottom tier for me. Okay, last one. Shoko Makinohara. I mentioned her briefly at the introduction as well as in Sakuta's bio, but I'll expand upon her a little bit, because she's the one that is probably the most interesting after Kaede for me. You first meet Shoko in a flashback on a beach with Sakuta as she's helping him through a troublesome moment. She's a third year at Minagahara High and inspires Sakuta to follow after her. Once he enrolls at the school, however, he finds that there is no student by her name whatsoever. At the end of the second arc, Sakuta and Mai run into a young girl looking after a stray cat, and she looks very familiar. This young girl introduces herself as, you guessed it, Shoko Makinohara. How can this be? Sakuta wonders the same thing, and Futaba writes it off as someone with the same name and similar appearance, but is that really the case? It's really difficult to go more in depth about her without spoiling, especially since it covers the movie, and I'd much rather you see that for yourself without knowing too much. But the mystery surrounding the two Shokos really intrigued me upon my first watch of the show. It was clear to me that this was the result of adolescent syndrome, but whose was it? My theory at the time, odd as it may seem looking back, is she was Sakuta's adolescent syndrome existing as the personification of his mother, older, comforting Shoko, and younger sister, younger Shoko's missing selves. The hole it left in him due to the situation surrounding her. My argument for this was that the older one was someone who'd comfort him when he needed her most, acting very motherly toward him, as well as the simple, she's older than him thing. The younger one was, well, younger than he is, as well as the fact that she was someone he needed to care for, since she left the stray cat with him. The fact that the older Shoko didn't ever register at the school and the younger one never showed a home or parents really added to this theory. That said, it's not true. I recommend watching the movie for yourself because her story is much more compelling than whatever nonsense I cooked up, but for now, that's all the characters. Let's finally move on to...
Part 2, the plot.
We're done. I can talk about the plot now. I honestly don't have much to say about it since there isn't really a central plot aside from the main premise of adolescent syndrome. I suppose it's best I start by explaining that, especially since you've probably been sitting there for the past 30 minutes listening to a guy prattle on about some weird adolescent syndrome, only to Google it yourself and wonder, yo, why is this guy talking about people with puberty issues? That seems like a personal thing. Okay, no, that's not what you think. I think this concept is more prevalent in Japan, but there was a social idea of reading the room or reading the atmosphere that people follow in society. Basically the idea of understanding the mood of a certain scenario amongst a group of people and going along with that mood. I suppose an example of this would be if you're in class and everyone, except for the teacher, is silent during the lesson, and you take the clue that you, as a student, probably should not speak up unless called upon by raising your hand. These cases of adolescent syndrome spawn from the mood of the room, leading you to feel or think a certain, usually negative, way. Something a lot of teenagers will feel while growing up, exerting it in some sort of teen angst. That's really why it's called adolescent syndrome. These kinds of drama are typically found in youth and dissipate as you get older. It's really just one of the parts of growing up, learning more about life and society, and dealing with the struggles that comes with it. That's what makes adolescent syndrome so interesting. It allows the struggles of the main characters to come to life in a supernatural way and display itself with interesting imagery and creative interpretations. People call Rascal Monogatari light, but honestly, I prefer how the supernatural aspect is handled here. It's so much more personal to each of the characters, and they each have to learn to deal with their own issues to be able to rid themselves of the supernatural problem tied to them. It's also much more relatable. I've mentioned how I can relate to Futaba, but I'm sure we've all had our own stigmas that we had to deal with growing up, and while this can remind us of it, it also allows for a further connection to the characters as we understand what they're going through. But yeah, the premise is really interesting, the characters are good, but now let's discuss...
Part 3, everything else.
So I'm going to use this segment to discuss everything that I wanted to talk about, but I wasn't sure where to put it. Starting with Sakuta and Futaba's friend, Kunimi. I wasn't sure where to put this discussion of him because, really, he's not a main character, nor do I think his lack of existence would have changed much. He's Futaba's love interest and comes in during her arc a lot of the time, as well as being someone Sakuta can talk to, but I can't really say much about him aside from he's the nice basketball-playing friend that will be there to help Sakuta whenever he needs him. They also work together at the cafe. This kind of ties into him, but I was really hoping he'd get his own puberty syndrome arc. Or another boy would get one. All of the cases, aside from Sakuta, are girls, and that's all well and good, but boys are just as susceptible to these things as girls are, if not more in some cases. It's also not like there aren't things that could cause puberty syndrome for him either. The stress of having to juggle his job, school, club, girlfriend, as well as his friends would be an interesting story to tackle. How do you survive with all that work, all those expectations? How do you not buckle under the pressure? It could also expand upon the already presented topic of his girlfriend constantly telling Sakuta to stay away from him or telling him he has to choose between her and Sakuta. Maybe this is her way of helping him lighten the load because it's just so much. There's just so much potential here and it never gets utilized. Okay, that's enough complaining. Now I'm just gonna gush about the show, starting with the main relationship between Sakuta and Mai. Man, they're cute! Most of this can be attributed to the fact that they actually communicate with each other. Sakuta will ask Mai if she's okay with helping out another girl instead of doing it on his own for her, only to find out last minute and get jealous. They'll turn to each other when they have problems. Things will get resolved without a needless sense of drama. For example, Mai tells Sakuta that her agency will not allow her to see him, and he takes it in stride, until it's found out by the media where they simply confirm it and choose to deal with the consequences if they come. None of this happens until they discuss it with each other either. Mai always makes sure to approach him about her problems just like he does for her, and it's so refreshing. There's rarely a misunderstanding. If there is, it's almost always immediately explained away to the point where it's a non-issue. And they're there for each other. Sakuta was there when Mai was going through her adolescence syndrome, and Mai does her best to be there for him when he needs. Although sometimes work gets in the way. Sometimes even being just a shoulder to cry on, someone to talk to, or similar. Also, man, I love that there's no bullshit where they don't get together because shenanigans need to ensue or one of them can't confess because they're too embarrassed. No! Sakuta tells her how he feels in episode 3. Episode freaking 3! And she responds positively to his confession in episode 4! And episode 6. Don't ask. It's all so refreshing. The romantic moments between the two are so cute. The dialogue between them is so witty yet so loving, and it feels like they have connection. It's just, so good! The OP by the Peggies is such a bop. The music is filled with so much detail that I could go on forever talking about it. I love how the ED of each arc features a different girl on the beach and the respective seiyuu sing the song. The piano track that I'm not sure if I can play with here without a copyright strike, though I'll try, makes me cry constantly. Like, okay, this may be a coincidence, but I think it's so cool that the series is Rascal does not dream of Bunny Girl Senpai, and the main reason Sakuta is able to remember Mai in the first place is because he doesn't sleep, so you know, Rascal does not dream. No. Yes, it could be a big coincidence. After all, how do you explain the other titles? Well, those could have been something else at one point. In the afterwards of the light novels, the author Hajime Kamoshida calls the series the Rascal series, meaning it could have only had Rascal in the title at one point, but changed to add Does Not Dream because it worked better or something. Who knows, but it's so cool to think about. Go watch this anime, go read the light novel, do whatever, just do it! Okay, I'm done gushing. You heard what I had to say. I'm not gonna say anymore. Just go watch the anime, go read the light novel, do whatever. There's a lot out there. Just do it. Man, sorry about that. You know, I went into this a little afraid. Talking about your favorite anime is scary because it puts you in such a vulnerable position. What if the anime doesn't hold up upon rewatch? Will I be able to accept the negative point of view? After all, I'm putting myself out there, and will I be okay with the rejection I met with? Even now, I'm a little unnerved by these thoughts, but that's the beauty of your favorite. It can be so different from someone else, yet there's a good reason why you like it so much, and that's great. Be happy about your favorite. Be proud of it. In fact, comment down below what your favorite anime is, and if you're brave enough, why you like it so much. I'd love to read all the different stories and the different favorites you all have. Though we may have different opinions, I think there's one thing we can all agree on.
Part 4, the waifus.
Hey guys, this is Jay from the future. I'm recording this right at the end of everything. I just wanted to say thank you guys so much for watching this video. It was so much fun to make, so much fun to rewatch Bunny Girl Senpai. If you want to watch the anime or read the light novel yourself, Crunchyroll has the anime right now, and you can check out the light novel either digitally or paperback via Yen Press. Links to all that will be in the description down below as well, and you can check them out via your local bookstore, Crunchyroll, or wherever. But yeah, just wanted to give a shout out to the people that publish the series, because I want to support the creator. I'm not using a script for this, so it's going to be a lot more off the cuff. But anyway, yeah, this was so much fun. And again, comment down below what your favorite anime is, because I'd love to read what you think and why you like it so much. Obviously, no pressure, just if you feel like it. I do have a couple more videos planned, but I don't really have that many, I don't really have an idea on how frequent I'm going to be uploading. It's mainly just whenever I feel like doing it. If you do want to hear more about things I'm up to, or just like what I'm watching and things like that, go check out the Anime Protagonist podcast, where I am a lot more active. An episode probably just released today, actually. So you can go check that out as well. And it was a lot of fun. We talked about Pokemon, we talked about the Pokemon anime and things like that, and it was really good, as well as the recent Nintendo Direct and Hogwarts Legacy, I think it's called. I'm not a Harry Potter fan. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this video. More to come at some point, but until then, peace!